kid. Talk about that. What is going on, everybody? Hope you guys are having an awesome, kind of an off season. Feels like it is, at least. Welcome back to the Pure Tennis Podcast. Nate Walworth, joined by Chase Pearson, Joe Patton. Boys, how we doing today?
We're doing well. It's finally hitting fall, and we're getting to the end of the season, and we can start to wrap up this season and move on to the exciting 2024.
It does feel like I'm just ready for the Australian Open to start. Like, I'm ready to get moving. There's just a big lull in the season at this point, and it makes sense. Tennis players need an off season, and even though there's a lot of tournaments going on, there's not a whole lot of excitement, it feels like, around either tour right now.
I think it's kind of a build-up to the ATP finals and WTA finals, and then after that, then it's straight back into.
But do those events feel important to you? Like, Rafa never won the ATP Tour finals, and I don't pin that on him as like a disappointment of his career at all, like whatsoever. I don't look at that as like a knock on his career at all.
It's worth 1,000 points still, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely something, and you're playing the top 8 guys in that year. I think it's something definitely that should be noteworthy. I just think at that point, people have had, 11 months of tennis, that it's hard for them to have the brain capacity to continue to want to watch it. Maybe it should be sooner in the year, but
I think a lot of it too is the dark room of that. Just looking at it, it doesn't feel like tennis the way that you want when you are watching. Tennis feels like,
no,
as much as we want, like the indoor stuff has a sterile side to it. It's just kind of
it feels so dead. Like, I would never want to go to the Paris Masters. Like, Holger playing versus Novak last year was a decent match, but it just felt like that whole tournament was
right.
The noise, the acoustics in there are terrible. The visuals are terrible. There's like a net that goes around the court that looks terrible. Maybe I'm being a downer, but it's like that event, for being a Masters 1000, like the fact that Cincinnati might lose this and there will be a Paris Masters still is just brutal.
Two events worth essentially 3,000 points in Paris.
What the?
And one is just abysmal.
It's in your grandma's basement. Like,
yeah.
It's like one of those unfinished basements that they decided to host a tournament in, and it's like they're supposed to have fans get excited about that. It's like something just feels off with it.
Well, it's just that the entire month of October is indoor. You like Stockholm, which I agree
Stockholm's
with.
dope because it feels like you're kind of at church, but you're kind of not. There's like church pews everywhere.
All the wooden church pews are kind of neat, but then it's like indoor in Antwerp, indoor in Vienna, indoor in Basel, and then indoor in your grandmother's basement in Paris.
That's a joke, but that's my take. That's a Pure Tennis
It's not
podcast.
actually my grandma.
And then you got Turin, which is basically the same look.
It is. In turn, like,
yeah.
I can't act like I'm excited. Like, I don't go to sleep and wake up like, oh, I can't wait to wake up and watch some Turin. Like, I'm never going to get excited for that.
I'm personally not a fan of the way that they do that, however you want to call it, but that system, like a 5-year slate where it's in one area. Like, I was looking at it because Shanghai is about to start, and that tournament was built originally, the China Open was built originally to house ATP finals, and like that was a cool event. Why don't we have like, at least the appearance was cooler, a lot cooler than now.
You got to make tennis look like it's a fun, energetic, sunshine type sport, and just
you don't see the crowd.
Yeah.
You can't see the crowd. How do you know what the energy is?
Right.
But in better news, Team World takes the Laver Cup
in destructive
what
fashion.
What a freaking win for Team World, man. It doesn't get any more epic than that. Roger Federer's retirement anniversary event, huge. It feels like an elitist event. I'm sorry. It just feels like we're just throwing money at this event. It was cool when you had Novak, Rafa, Federer, Kyrgios, those type of guys in it. It's like now we got like a Zoom call from Rafa telling Federer, who's your favorite partner? And it's just like, what are we doing? Like, that's the biggest buzz we get around this tournament. And we got Arthur Fils participating in it. No, half the audience doesn't even know who he is. And it just felt like
the winners each take home $250K.
There you go. I mean, and tennis players need it because, they only get 18% of what they really earn. So they actually need that money. That's a good thing.
Every drop in the basket helps.
It's like petitions. But why does Laver Cup rubs me wrong when Federer retired? Maybe Laver Cup should have retired. Am I being too harsh?
I mean, there's definitely like a
What was cool about that?
I mean,
this year, nothing really.
There was nothing cool about. Like, I will remember nothing from that. Like, they had Ben Shelton do some phone calls and hang-ups, and they had Chris Eubanks waving pom-poms, and they had Gael Monfils come out there and half-ass it and try to put on a little bit of a show and do some dances. They had Felix try to get amped up in front of his hometown crowd, being a Canadian guy, trying to act like this event matters.
And
I'm happy for... Huh?
And meanwhile, the Ryder Cup's going on, and Novak's playing in the All-Star event.
Exactly. And the Ryder Cup is so cool. It's like tennis needs to figure out, watch the Ryder Cup. All the people that put these events on, watch the Ryder Cup. Look at, like, there's real passion. There's, like, kind of a real rivalry there.
Actual rivalry.
It's an actual rivalry, and it feels like there's some juice behind the event. It feels like these players are fighting for it, and they want to come together as a country and beat Team Europe. It's like, that's legit. And I don't know what Laver Cup, I'm sure Federer's vision was for that to happen, but tennis doesn't, it's an exhibition. It's an exhibition that feels like an exhibition. There's just the crowd. It just felt, compared to last year, especially when it was so cool, just because we all knew it was Federer's last time on a court, and he was actually trying to win a tournament, like win the freaking match with Rafa. That was all cool, but this year it's just like, oof.
I feel like it hurt Europe a lot, just because in the sense that they didn't have a lot of their top players. I think it wouldn't have been 13-2, which might have made it a little bit more competitive. And those are the guys that they're chasing, at least Team World's chasing. And then the fact that they just go out there and dominate those guys anyway, it was just like, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, they should beat them. At least in my eyes, it felt like that.
Oh, yeah. Team Europe was kind of washed.
It's the weakest it's been.
No Medi, no Zverev.
Like,
no
there wasn't
captain.
Like a competition aspect coming into it because of that.
Soft captain.
Like, yeah, there's no takeaways from Laver Cup where I'm like, oh, this was cool. It's just like, that was, they fumbled the bag.
McEnroe gets to beat Jorg one more time, right?
And that's face. And how many times can we watch Team McEnroe go over against Team Borg? It's like, that was cool. It's like, I don't know.
I'd like to see, like,
fest.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of a younger name, like, I don't know, maybe Pete Sampras or Andre Agassi.
That'd be cool.
And then
exactly.
like Fed for
it's
Team
time.
Europe.
Andy Roddick.
It's time.
Andy Roddick. Anybody
that's
a little bit younger and something fresh. Like, maybe that refreshes it, and then give us like an all-star game. That can be like more of the exhibition, whether all-stars like older players or people like celebrities that watch tennis. That could be something. I don't know, just something to draw something away from the fact that it's an exhibition match, and then make tennis competitive at the top level.
True. And what event did Stan Wawrinka go on a Twitter spout about having that the crowd was being paid to cheer for certain individuals? Did you see that?
I don't know.
It was a tournament like 2 weeks ago, and I don't know. Stan was ripping on it because they were. He's like, the audience is actually getting paid to come here and participate.
What did he say?
Was this ATP?
Yeah, for sure. This was definitely ATP. I'm trying to think what it was, but it was like that's the like this is the part of the calendar that we're in right now, where it's just it's tough to find storylines.
He says that as the claim that the ITF have paid actors in the Manchester's Davis Cup crowd.
Davis Cup. That was Davis Cup, yeah. And that's like, Davis Cup has also been a disaster. It's like, how do you host these cool team events in places that have no stake in the fight? It's like, Davis Cup is supposed to be awesome. And like, it was not cool at all this year, like so far. It's like, I thought it was awesome that Novak went from the U.S. Open, and then like 3 days later he's putting on a show again in doubles and singles, balling out. And other than that, I didn't enjoy any of the Davis Cup at all. Like, it was just...
I think it makes it hard when you have a country like Finland, who has a population of 5 million people, making it to the quarters.
Listen to the Stan Wawrinka.
To watch Finland
Stan Wawrinka was upset and quick to point out that the empty seats and lack of atmosphere at the tournament felt that the organization had artificially began boosting the noise inside of Manchester.
That's brutal. Like
that's the worst. That's the worst thing you could ever.
And
say.
Stan is one of the most honest, one of the best champions in our sport. One of the nicest dudes that I've ever met in tennis. That's him being candid. I'm sure it hurts him to be this candid with him having so much pride in playing for Team Switzerland, whether it's at the Olympics or in Davis Cup. He's just kind of fed up with it, and he's at a point of his career where he's able to be honest because he has nothing to lose. And I thought that was very telling for him to kind of come out there and just expose the Davis Cup committee and whoever else is putting on that shit show of a product right now. Because it was embarrassing for tennis, and that was just disgusting. And I was like, no one cares about this. No one's like, team events are great, and I'm all about team events. That's why I love college tennis, and that's why we spend so much of our time covering and traveling around America to freaking cover what college tennis is about, and it's awesome how many pros come from that. And because the team environment, it does breed success into these young players, and that part is like we need to figure out how to like encapsulate the best parts of team events and put it in tennis. It's like United Cup, you had the ATP Cup. It's like how many cups can you have? Make one of these cups matter.
There's too many.
You have to make it matter. I think the Davis Cup does a slightly better job than the Laver Cup, but I agree that it was
Laver Cup
bad this year.
It was bad. It's just like, damn, it's like I should be able to get juiced up for after U.S. Open. It's like some team events. Let me see some beef. Let me see some guys like get coached up on the sideline by other professionals and get them mic'd up and make it a fun event. And a person like myself and you, it's like we should be locked into that stuff. It's just like it's a new look on tennis, and it's like a new look and feel, and you get to hear players talk, live reactions, live strategy. That should be like, it should be a feast for all tennis fans.
Do you think it's like schedule positioning? Like it's tough to go from the U.S. Open to that. You see the highest quality of tennis, and then next thing you know, now you're watching, I don't know, World 390 play doubles against Novak. You know what I mean? Like it should be a slaughter. And, and it was.
So that was, I know we're starting this podcast on a little bit of a downer, but it's just like we need to figure out if you're going to keep the players on the court for this length of time and not give them a true offseason, at least like make some of these events feel like legit events. And that's where I feel like tennis is just dropping the ball. And to kind of top on what we've talked, it's like we all watched this video. Shout out to Vox. If you guys haven't, go to Vox and check out this tennis video they put out recently. Not only are some of these events falling flat, but it's like tennis has got to figure out a way to get these pairs played so we can have. You had guys like QB Hurkacz and other players just kind of ripping on what tennis is doing. And 18% of the revenue that these players generate gets put into their pockets. Every other league, whether it's basketball, soccer, football, hockey, they get about 50% of what they pull into the sport back into their pockets. Tennis is taking they're getting robbed of their money. Like I don't know why tennis is doing this, and tennis has some fixing to do. And I hope that this, with Novak being ahead of the PTPA and being as vocal as he is about how there's only 500 players in the world that can say that they're professionals that make a living off tennis, and that's including women, men, singles, and doubles. That's not big enough for one of the most popular global sports in the world to only be able to support 500. And we all know that if you're outside the top 80 to 100, if you're outside that benchmark, I mean, you can't afford to pay for a full-time coach. And
you're still probably playing in debt, really. I mean, outside of 100, I think most of those people are playing in debt every year.
Taylor Townsend just said that she couldn't even pay her coach when she was in that, and she had to be honest. Like she's like, I can't pay you until I'm going to run at one of these big tournaments, and I need a Masters 1000 or a Slam because that's where the biggest paydays come from. And you think about the big payday, it's like the Honeydews at the U.S. Open drew about $10 million in 2023, is what I've heard. It was $8.9 million last year. I think it was closer to about $10 million this year. Both prizes from the men and women's champion combined receives like $6 million. So it's like,
yeah, the problem isn't that the money isn't there. The problem is that there's no one adamantly looking at the aggregate group of players and arguing for them as a whole to take portions of that pile of money. So I think that we can all see the money. It's all whether or not they start collectively kind of forcing, whether it be ATP or someone to kind of like pry it out of. It's hard to get money out of people's hands.
It is, and that's the problem with tennis is you've got so many governing bodies in tennis,
all dipping their beak,
all want a piece of the pie, and that's the biggest problem with tennis is we have 7 different organizations that want to slice, whether it's all 4 slams, ITF, ATP, WTA, and it's like you go to the UFC, it's just UFC. You go to the NFL, it's the NFL makes the decisions. Same with the NBA, same with MLB, same with Premier League. It's like that's why they get the biggest piece of the pie back to the players because there's one governing body, there's one body of decision makers, and it's just like tennis is like it's a cut here, it's a cut there. It's just like geez, and it's just like that's what it even filters into the suspensions of players, like we've seen with Simona Halep, in her first time being caught is in a doping incident, which seems to be coming partly due to the Muratoglu Academy not doing their homework on what's legal and what's not. And that's why Muratoglu has been so active in this case. But it's like, if you get caught for the first time doping in UFC, you get 2 years. NFL, you get 4 games. MLB, 80 games. NBA 25 games, NHL 20 games. Simona Halep, 4 years.
Yeah.
Your career's over. You're done.
Especially, and that's the thing. We just want the best tennis. It's just, if you would get these guys, like, I think that there's a psychological component of playing your better tennis when you're not worried about whether or not you're going to eat.
Exactly.
And not have to fly and have enough money to pay people that are trying to eat. You know, like, if you freed up a group, let's say it doesn't have to be the top 300, but if you freed up so that maybe everyone in the top 150 is not going broke.
It's 150 at least.
You're going to get much better tennis all the way down the line because those people are playing tennis free to like work their game, and they're not just, just scrambling to get to the next tournament, try to stay alive. I feel like tennis has a much more of a dire, like, their season is. That's why you see so many people just fizzle out and leave. Like, they don't last because
you can't. It's the mental part of it as well as being able to put bread on the table. And it's like Carlos Alcaraz, a generational talent, a once in a lifetime tennis player, dominated, made $10 million. And if you look at that and compare to an NFL and an NBA or soccer player, you're like 150th highest paid player in any of those associations or leagues.
And
that's a joke. It's like, this guy's the most he's more marketable than like all these players that are making as much money as him across other sports. It's like, now, but he has to go get his money off the court because tennis won't put it back in his pocket after what he put on a show for the whole world across every continent almost.
Absolutely.
For a freaking calendar year. Pay the man. He's carrying the freaking boat right now for tennis.
Yeah. He took him $3 million for winning. Is it $3 million?
Yeah,
$3 million for Wimbledon.
Yeah.
And he gets 1.5 out of that.
After what, taxes or something?
After taxes, probably.
That's a joke.
I mean, the slams are paying the most. Like, U.S. Open's total purse is $30 million. But, like, you're looking down, like, he comes to Cincinnati. Well, how many tickets do we sell? 200,000 plus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, like, the total purse in Cincinnati, Masters 1000, is a little bit over $7 million. Like, you can just do the math. There's a lot more money there that could go into the players' hands. But not that, I mean, I just want better tennis for the whole way down.
And you get, the tour's deep right now. Imagine if we actually were able to pay the guys that were inside the top 200. They got to fight for a salary. That's what, I know they're getting closer to that. I know Novak's, I got to commend him for what he's doing, speaking up on these players. He has no obligation to do that. And he's going out there putting his head on a platter. Roger and Rafa didn't do that.
No, they didn't.
They didn't go out there and look out for these guys. And people say whatever they want about Novak. That's fine.
He
stands up for these players that have never had a voice their entire career. It's like, how can you not? Novak is trying to make our game better and put us in a better position for the future, and he doesn't need to do that. He's the greatest player of all time. He's got $150, $200 million in his bank account right now. He's fine, and he's still going out there and exposing tennis, a sport that's given him so much. And it's like, you gotta freaking appreciate that. I don't care what your beliefs are with him being the no-vax, anti-vaxxer. The guy's the healthiest man in the world, probably one of the top athletes in the world. Like, you got to give him his kudos, and I don't know if we do that enough.
No, they don't.
Do you think that's? Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
No, I was just going to kind of pile on that. Is that here? There's polarization that occurs, and then some of it is
even without the vaccination, the dude is playing at a high level. So
but I think that part of me is. A lot of Novak's goods are immediately ignored because he does stand up for his ideals, and
because he hung the phone up on Ben Shelton, and we all should hate him for that. What a freaking bully! You freaking jerk!
Yeah, right.
Why would you mock a celebration in sports? This isn't supposed to be entertainment.
Do you think it took like somebody coming from like a war-torn country to get to be able to speak out comfortably about that kind of stuff because they went through? Like, his childhood was...
That he's fearless. Yeah. I agree.
Because, I mean, Switzerland is known as, like, the most peaceful country. Like, what did he...
Roger,
no, it's no offense to them. Like, that's just where they're born and they grow up. But, like, I think that's a notable thing to think about. Like, U.S. players, like, that's kind of ingrained in them because of their culture. And we have it good.
Yeah.
And, like, Spain, like, it just hasn't been a problem for 40-plus years for a lot of these people. It sucks that it had to come down to somebody that happened to go through that. But... I'm glad it's him because it needed to be that kind of person.
It feels like it's always Novak taking the brunt end of all these hot takes and stuff. But it's like, you got to at least congratulate him for what he does for the sport on like a day-to-day basis. It's like, I don't know. It's just like we hate on this man all the time. But it's like this
we
dude
don't.
is.
You can. He could go cash his check and go live in Switzerland. He could go anywhere he wants and just kind of get fat. But he's sticking his neck out there for a bunch of people that
he probably doesn't even know their names.
Or
he's not watching them play tennis.
Or get mad when he hangs the phone up on him. Like he's sticking out his neck for Ben.
Have we podcasted since? Did we touch on that last time?
I don't think we talked about it.
I don't think we talked about this. I'm happy to see some other people on Twitter outside of the sport, as well as Curious and others, like just drill that take that started with Ben's dad, which was just like, I'm surprised he didn't rescind that take to kind of take some pressure off his son, who's taking some backlash because of that. But that was literally the weakest take in tennis history, probably. Like, are you kidding me? You're saying Novak wants to be liked by everybody or whatever he said, and he's hanging. I'm like, Novak doesn't give a rat's ass about what people think about him. If you haven't watched his career at all, it's like he definitely is going to hang the phone up on you if you tell him like, oh, Novak can't handle this, or he's not ready for this serve, or you flex on people after hitting aces and stuff. It's like, no, Novak's going to put your ass in your place. He's going to hang your phone up on you. And he's gonna laugh at you for getting
shut your mouth and know your role.
I think it's
you're
even weirder
top
though.
20, good job, but you're not Novak yet. He's allowed to hang the phone up on you.
I was gonna say I think it's even weirder though because like when Ben like post interview he was like, yeah, like I mean it's like the most flattery, like he's allowed to do whatever he wants, and then Brian comes out and says that, and it's like, why did you just make your son look worse? You know what I mean? Like
it's a huge like sign of respect that Rafa even considered you as you deserved of him to mock you. Like you deserve, like he actually thought about your goofy celebration to mock it. And it's like, that's what sports is we tune in to see the best tennis players put on a show and entertain. It's like, that's why I'm putting
sport.
all my, it's sports.
It's
that's why I watch NFL.
Yeah. And it's a fight sport. And whether you like it or not, it's
a title fight
sport.
every time.
Yeah. It's not just, they're not out there to be friends with each other.
We want that.
And
why do we want to see friends play friends? I don't want to see that crap.
Yeah. So boring. I want to see them get pissed at each other. And I like that Ben Shelton, like you said, is flexing and getting in.
Exactly. I do too. I love it.
That's part of my thing. I don't like when someone can dish it but can't take it. And I'm just saying his dad.
And maybe Ben can take it. Maybe it was his dad. But
his dad's butt hurt. But by him doing that, it's making his son unlikable. Which like I don't want that to happen.
Exactly. We want Americans to be likable, especially someone as marketable as Ben Shelton.
Exactly.
A guy that has a great story, comes out of a national champion at the college level, booms onto the scene real quick, takes out Casper Ruud in Cincinnati, takes out Sonego, and goes to the quarterfinals
never looks back in Australia, and then gets to the quarter. Yeah. Was he semis?
Quarters in Australia, semis in U.S. Open, goes top 20 within 1 year of turning pro, whatever. It's like a little over a year. And we love it's a hell of a story.
We love that. We don't like when people can give it and can't take it though. So just don't do that.
Before the show, we're trying to come up with rivalries that we want to see in 2024, and it's like there's not that many rivalries because there's not that many personalities that are out there clashing because tennis is what it is, and kind of like golf in that way where it's guys that have to keep their composure out there and don't want to and it's like that's why when there's guys like Kyrgios and Shelton and Novak and Bublik and all these other guys that are more showmen, even Fokina to an extent, it's like I love that, and I love the edginess and the chippiness, and it's like I would love to have more of that in tennis, and it's like don't try to put a dampener on it like and say that Novak's not. It's like, come on. Like, Jamar Chase has been doing the gritty with Jefferson forever. It's like, so every player out there that's doing the gritty is it's like, what
mocking Jamar Chase.
What a mockery.
No.
Every kid out there is mocking him. I'm like, I don't know about that guy.
But you're right. There's not many, like, because they are so composed, you're not getting that main card atmosphere unless you're going to see Zverev and Medi. Even though we watched them in Cincinnati, they're pretty tame.
And even like Carlos and Novak is like, they're going to say it's a rivalry, but it's like, there's really no bad blood there, so it's not like a. Yeah. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of respect there, which is cool, but I would rather see the rivalry. I'm more of a fan of that. And
tennis has a much more real thing when there is a rivalry because it is a fight sport, and then when there is like actual bad blood, like when
you're watching in the 80s,
Holger
Joe,
Rune and Stan.
Exactly. Holger and Stan, great example. Yeah. But like when you're watching in the 80s and stuff when we were not alive, but it's like, oh God, I'm sure those were the best matches because those guys hated each other.
Lendl were just it was absolute war.
Connors and those guys going after it.
Connors, McEnroe, they hated each other.
And that's when sports are at its peak and it's most fun to watch, in my opinion. I don't know. I guess people in tennis disagree with that because I was surprised how many tennis fans were like, but I guess people just hate on Novak. Anyway, that's
that's what it is.
That's part one of the Pure Tennis podcast. I don't know. I know we started off on more of a negative note here, but I thought there were some things that we need to air out. And
it's the realism of our sport right now.
It is, and I feel like we felt strong about
well,
it.
And this is the time to talk about it because there's nothing else to talk. We've got a bunch of 500 little indoor tournaments, so let's talk about some fights.
And the women's.
What are your top fights for next year?
The Pure Tennis Podcast top title fights of
top
2024. We've got 5 of them for you guys. Starting off at the top, it's an interesting one. I don't know if people are ready for this one, but I've got Tommy versus de Minaur.
Great title fight
in the first fight. It's a matchup we've seen before. It's a match that does not disappoint. 2 guys that go all out for pretty much every match, especially watching those 2 on a hard court. The contrast of styles. Chase thinks that they're similar, so we're going to let him defend that standpoint. But
I think
this is a rivalry on the Pure Tennis Podcast.
Yeah.
I'm not mocking you, I promise.
It's not that. So when I said similar, I think it's because what I think of de Minaur is I think really highly of him, but I just wish that he would play at the same type of level that Tommy is able to play at. Because I think that's what he wants to achieve, but because he doesn't have the power off those wings, he's forced into the style of play that he has. So if he had that power, I don't know how he could get it. Maybe it's just not obtainable at this point. But
eat some more green beans.
I guess so.
I think that he's an expert at defense. I mean, he's ranked higher than Tommy Paul. I think that when he comes down to it, when I think of that as a title fight, you're getting the peak level offensive player playing against a peak level defensive player, and then just see who what style is going to win. To me, that's exciting. You're going to see someone bombing and someone that can catch bombs.
Both top 6 players on a hard court in 2023, which was very interesting to me. I mean, with all these big names out there in the top 15 or 20, those 2 guys, undersized guys, but both explosive with their athleticism. And I think that's where you kind of see the similarities. Yeah. And that's true. I mean, both are phenomenal movers. I think de Minaur moves to play defense and to counterpunch. I think Tommy moves to counterpunch and to play offense.
I think the counterpunch is where I was getting a lot of the similarities in style more so when I was thinking about it initially.
I mean, that's a great fight though, and when anytime you get that, you get Muhammad Ali or you go Joe Frazier. And
I love the contrast.
There's a contrast between the styles that makes the fight interesting because you can kind of see one or the other, and you can see both of them highlight the other one and what they're good at and what they're not good at. So to me, that's a great title fight for 2024. Will it happen? Probably not.
No, we're gonna get this one.
We'll see it.
What's wild is you got Tommy's at the point now at 5'10", 5'11", cracking 135. He's got 135 plus in the tank when he needs it. That's outrageous. And then de Minaur, the fastest player on the tour right now. I mean, I think he's faster than Novak and Carlos, just side to side.
Yeah.
He's underrated at the net too. He's probably top 5 net player on
think
the
so.
tour right now. No, I mean it. Go watch him play doubles. I mean, the guy has just ridiculous volleys.
I like that. That's a good take. I don't think people are ready for that take right there. That's a good call. I just don't think of him as a volleyer, but when I watch him play, he does move forward more than you think.
Go watch his highlights.
He's
comes into
one of
the
net,
best net players.
And he comes into the net as a strategy too. It just comes out. It's this is the part of the game where Alex is probably figuring out he's coming into the net because it's not all the time. It just shows up. It's it's coming in as a defensive style. It's he's bringing it in to just kind of could give himself a breather because he's tired of running so hard. So he'll just come into the net for 2 games.
And he's got that young.
It works at a really high percentage when he does do it.
When he does, you're right.
He's got that young Rafa ability that you think the point's dead, and he just takes off for that one more ball, and he makes you just think about that last shot one more time, and it's just the way he can slide on a hard court is ridiculous. I mean, when he gets going, the dude is scooting. So
and
that's
shout out to my dad because my dad loves him. So
shout out to Pops, Papa Patton. Let's go,
Richard.
That's our first title fight of 2024 that we would like to see on the Pure Tennis Podcast. Number 2, it's an obvious one. It's one that we've seen a lot in the last few months, and I need to see it again. Carlitos and the Joker.
Yeah.
One that is, Novak at 36 years old, I did not think he would be able to hold on long enough to make this a rivalry that we could see for a few years, but his body seems like it's fit, and it doesn't seem like he's going anywhere soon. The dude took a hack in the thick brush on the golf course. I thought he was going to break his wrist, but he seems to be fine. Did you see that?
The swing was interesting.
Dude was buried in there. I'm like, you're going to snap your wrist playing this freaking goofy Ryder Cup celebrity game. Take it easy over there, Ralph. Or Novak.
I think that match will never get old because the tennis those two together is just, you're going to get the best tennis of anyone that could happen on
it's
tour.
pure tennis.
It is pure tennis.
It's pure tennis.
Also a big contrast in styles, in my opinion. I mean, you've got Novak, who just pinpoint accuracy, doesn't need to beat you with power, just beats you with putting the ball in his place, and
percentage tennis.
Just suffocates you with just his precision.
Not giving you anything.
Exactly.
Nothing.
Then you got Carlitos, who just has shot making from anywhere, who just goes for it relentlessly, who's got wheels for days, who's got finesse, who can bring Novak in when he wants to and make Novak come up with the down the line approach shot and then hit a good. It's like, and Novak showed that he's like the back half of the year. I think he realized that was what Carlos was going to do. Is the drop shot was obviously a big part of his game. Novak's like, you know what? Let's get back to the basics of shoring up the volley game, and he just dominated in the front court the last few months of the season. Like, he made that a strong, like, big push of his kind of whole entire game. I mean, like, coming forward.
At the U.S. Open, wasn't he like 80% up there?
Yeah, it was ridiculous, and he was
so good.
And that was coming after Wimbledon, where he had lost to Carlos. And I that's the one I'm most excited about, is back on grass, seeing those two again. Because I just didn't expect Carlos to come out there and play like that.
I want to see him at the Australian Open. I want to see him at the French Open.
We didn't get it. We didn't get it this year.
I think Carlos coming into the net just blows my mind.
Because Carlos was out.
Yeah.
I want to see him come up to the net more, because he's so good everywhere else. But then you see him come in the net, he's amazing at the net. Like, it's just that's main card. There's nothing better than those two when they get together. So what's next?
Title fight number 3 for 2024. Sasha Zverev versus Daniil Medvedev.
Oh, yeah.
One that we've seen 16 times. 9-7 Medi leads right now. We saw it in Cincinnati. Sasha got his legs back underneath him now, just coming off a title. The confidence is coming back in a hurry.
I mean, is that the best, like you were saying, Nate? Is that the best rivalry right now in the like, if you talk top tier tennis players, that's probably the best one.
I think that's where there's some bad blood in there, and those guys you're never going to catch them at the bar together having a drink. It seems like there's some real beef there. They don't, like, I think watching them on Laver Cup last year was interesting, that you could just tell that those guys don't really want to be around each other, including Tsitsipas in that mix. I thought that, for me, this is a matchup that I just love watching. It's another contrast of styles. Medi just sitting 30 yards behind the baseline, absorbing pace, and Sasha just kind of massaging the ball around the court, waiting for his opportunity, and then making Medi come up with the goods. And Medi's done it 9 times. Sasha's done it 7 times. Equal. I think it's a pretty equal match, especially when it comes to a hard court. On a clay court, I would give the edge to Sasha. On a grass court, I'd like to see that at Wimbledon. That would be a fun one. Give me that in like the quarters. Love to see the Sasha and Medi matchup.
I think by that point, it'll be semis for them.
Wow. So you think Sasha's coming back to the top 5?
I think so, yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
A little sneak peek for that.
I mean, I agree with Chase. That would just
Sasha's
top five.
His talent's
top 5
so
player,
ridiculous
for
his size, movability, everything about it. I mean,
and it's
I think that'll be a semi matchup at Wimbledon once we get it.
Love that. Title fight number 4, one that was touched on by JP. Rune versus Stan Wawrinka.
Only because they've split 1-1, and like we get the actual fighting.
Young
I almost
versus the
this will be the last year.
Man.
It'll be the last year for this rivalry. Is Stan's holding on for dear life, but still putting on a show.
Yeah,
I mean he is.
He is. Yeah,
the dude's
I just
emptying the gas tank, and I love to see it. Like he's fit. He looks like he's getting. He's kind of his body's been a big focus last year, just with him kind of battling some things, and
he's trimmed up.
He's trimmed up for sure.
The beauty of this rivalry is that this was something that you can see early, and like that favors the actual rivalries. Like you're going to get a Stan Wawrinka Holger Rune matchup in round 1.
It's a father-son battle too. It's like it's literally like watching like me when I was playing my dad when I was like in high school, like trying to knock him off his block for the first time, and I'm like coming after him, talking some shit, and Stan's like,
Shut your mouth.
And Stan's just like holding, like my dad would do it to me, like when we would get in wrestling matches, just hold me down, let me just bark at him, and I didn't have the power to get up off of him, and it's just like that's what I feel like I'm watching is little Holger. His mom's taking him to his match, dropping him off, and Dad ain't letting him have it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Mom's still watching. Dad beats him up.
And Mom's like, let him win one. Let him win one.
I'm going to get smack this cigarette up here.
Oh, man. Last fight we've got highlighted for 2024 is one that we have not seen yet, one that we've got to see. Nick Kyrgios, Ben Shelton. two fiery personalities, two guys that like to put on a show for a crowd, two of the best servers in the world, arguably the two best servers in the world, two massive forehands, and guys that are not afraid to speak their opinion. And I think that just all of those things that you kind of put into one match, we got to have it. I think it would be electric. I would love to see who the crowd would pull for. Obviously, in Australia, we know where that would go, but anywhere else outside the U.S. and Australia, like, who does the crowd go for in that one? It's like both of them are. I feel like Ben, he's not polarizing yet, but like he's got the chance to be more of a polarizing figure as he's flexing on dudes, dropping aces, and staring people down.
Does he flex on? Do you think he flexes on?
I mean, yeah, he hits like
he would definitely.
He would definitely do it. Yeah,
you think so?
Yeah.
And I don't think he's scared to hold. Like he's not going to hold back against anybody. I don't think.
Nah, he's not scared of Kyrgios.
I mean, he did it against Novak. Yeah. Why would he not do it against Kyrgios?
Because Kyrgios throws racket at his face.
You know, Kyrgios is going to drop. Like Kyrgios is going to drop shot him, and then he's coming high heat is coming to the chest. It's like
that's
we want it. That's what he did to Rafa. It's like he didn't give a shit that he was playing Rafa. He went right after Rafa's chest at Wimbledon and like blew him up. And it was like send a message, I think, to everybody else. It's like, I'm coming. Like I might not be every week on tour, but when I'm here, I'm
ready.
Yep. So that was my last one. I think that JP was like, Kyrgios is out of commission, but he's coming back. And I got
the only reason I wasn't saying I just don't. I like that Kyrgios. I would like him to be, if he's going to take a title card, like you don't want your favorite player to go play somebody in a title fight when they haven't like played 100 matches.
Exactly. No, I agree. And we need Nick to get some matches under his belt to kind of get some form back, find his level. But
probably doesn't come back till Brisbane, right?
Is that what
you think?
Yeah.
I want Kyrgios.
I would guess he's not going to do anything until it comes back to Australia.
He's done for this year. Yeah.
Slam finalist Kyrgios versus Ben Shelton. I would like that. That's all I'm saying.
Slam finalist against Kyrgios.
I want Kyrgios. Yeah, I want the Kyrgios that plays in Slam finals.
So what you're saying, I mean,
I don't want the Kyrgios that's been taking a year off to go fight a title card.
Technically, how about Casper Ruud then? He's a 3-time Slam finalist.
No,
you know
I'm talking.
I mean?
Casper is so cooked. Casper is cooked.
We'll let you guys decide this. So I want you to comment or
Throw
something.
It in the comments.
Tell me if you think Casper's cooked. Me and Joe are on the same side here. We think he's got.
You call it? Are you saying he's a pusher? He's a peaker.
No, I'm not
bro.
saying he's definitely not a pusher.
He's not
was
push
2 in the world.
2.
No, but he's
a top. He is top 10.
He's not cooked.
Playability.
He's not cooked.
Casper.
He's
he better have a hell of a clay court season, or else he's out of the top 10, and he may never come back.
He only played 24 tournaments this year. That's down from his 520 tournaments that he played the year before.
And he's in the body's feeling it. I mean, I think these players get used to his spin ball. It's just a high bouncing heavy ball. Guys start to hit down on that ball.
But you didn't see. I mean, that was the one match I was tuned into was Tommy and him at the Laver Cup, and I mean he was crushing the ball on his forehand.
Come on,
he wasn't hitting his little loopy ball that he does, and I mean he beat Tommy.
You mean he played well on that black court that sounds like a hollowed ground?
Yeah.
What the hell is that? That sounds like you're playing on 3 inches of cement, and it's like I don't know what's underneath there, like a parking garage.
Probably.
Anyway,
I have a great trivial question for anyone that's like talking. Just because we're talking about Casper Ruud, and I'm going to ask both of you guys. I didn't let them know that I was going to ask this.
Dude's cooked.
Who do you think played the most tournaments in 2023?
Ooh, I like that. I got no clue, but I got to guess. Let's see. I got to put out a guess.
You want to go? I got one, but
most tournaments in 2023.
And more importantly, what biggest name played more than 30 tournaments?
What biggest name played more than 30? Okay. Most tournaments in 2023, I'm going to say that's tough.
I'm curious if you got the same person in mind.
I don't want to be wrong, but I'm going to be wrong. Go ahead. Go first.
I'm going to say Taylor Fritz.
No.
I'm going to say...
But that's interesting because there's the biggest name...
I'm going to say my guess is going to be, give me...
Mackenzie McDonald made 30.
No
he's the biggest.
way.
He's the biggest U.S. person. The number of tournaments. And Nate, I'm just going to give you a hint because I don't think you guys are close. 35 is the top dog. Because I always give Ruud crap because
what's this guy ranked? Is he top 30?
He's 50.
Oh, I won't cheat. 50th player in the world was at a
35 tournaments though.
I was gonna say like Cerundolo or something. I don't know. Who is it?
It's Vucic.
Wow.
Alexander Vucic.
The Australian.
I wouldn't have thought he played
I know,
that
but
much.
35 tournaments. Like that. Richard Gasquet played 33.
Wow.
That's crazy. At his age,
Adrian
playing 33.
Manarino at 30 with Mackenzie McDonald.
He was another one I was thinking of.
I'm like looking at these though. Max Purcell, Alexander Bublik. I mean, they're all in the 20s.
That's crazy.
Ben Shelton at 28.
Yeah, he played a lot.
Chris
There was a
Eubanks
lot
at
of
28.
exits.
Did
Early exits.
Shelton play some challengers in the beginning of this year, or was he already done with challengers?
I
think he was probably
I
done.
think he was probably
maybe
done, but he played 28 tournaments.
That's crazy.
Early exits too. So when you like the early exits allow you to go to the next tournament, like where
Yeah.
other guys kind of can't.
Yep.
So
That's true. That's very true.
Sarandolo though, you just said that 27.
All right, so I don't feel terrible about that.
Where
guess.
was Fritz at? He's not in that range?
Taylor Fritz played 26, which is still.
That's a lot. I mean,
For
that's-
being top
that's
10,
every other week.
that's a lot.
Every
Yeah.
other week you're playing a tournament. That's
Yeah.
pretty hefty.
Casper Ruud though 24, way down the list. JJ Wolf played 25. Tommy Paul played 25.
Interesting.
We always
Okay.
give Casper Ruud crap about that.
I got to.
Well, he did say he was going to dial it back a little bit this year.
Right.
I will say I don't have a ton of other takes for the Pure Tennis Podcast fans out there, but I will say if you guys are out there and you're interested in gear, our boy CP has been putting out heat day in and day out here on the Pure Tennis blog. You got to check it out. His last two, as I believe at least, best hardcourt shoes for sliding in the top 5 spin rackets. Two of my favorite pieces that CP's put out there. They're must reads. We put them on Instagram. Be sure to check out the Pure Tennis blog. Chase does a phenomenal job as a high school coach, someone that's a big consumer in the market as well. This is a awesome piece, and I think we'll be doing some video reviews of these as well later on this season, but definitely go check those out. Great pieces, a lot of good information. If you guys are spin frame players, if you guys are hardcore players that are looking to slide, he did extensive research, asked a lot of players as well, so I thought that was super cool. Chase, anything that you're going to highlight coming down the pipeline in the near future?
Right now I'm working on some value shoes, depending on what kind of style you play. I mean, that might be in the foreseeable future for you. And then I will say, touching on the spin rackets, check out Dunlop rackets, man. That's a shout out. I was pretty impressed with Dunlop.
The SX is one of my favorite sticks. It feels like, as being a Pure guy my whole life, it did feel like it was a bit of a knockoff until I tried it. It feels different.
It feels a little different. It's a little more solid at connection point.
Yes.
I would say feel-wise.
Where do you feel that connection? Is that more in the butt cap or down in like throughout the whole racket or what?
It's almost like right at the bottom of the top of the throat.
Okay.
I feel like it's very solid right at the bottom. Like I feel connected right through, finishing through contact. But I would say touch-wise, it's not on the same level as the Pure Arrow, but everything else, man, I mean, that thing can generate spin like no other.
And it does. On my backhand, I think the frame itself, like on this, like at 10 and 2, I feel a little bit more like the Pure Arrow. I had to add some lead tape at the top of the frame just for my backhand and my serve to kind of get on the outside of the ball a little bit more, and on the serve to kind of get down the ball a little bit more. I feel like the SX does a great job of that without lead tape, in my opinion. But those are two awesome pieces. Definitely check them out. Guys, got to shout out tennis-point.com. A lot of awesome stuff out there. Just dropped as far as just different colorways on shoes. The Nike fall collection or holiday collections out there, as well as a lot of the fall favorites dropped. We'll say the Wilson blade that's blacked out. Hit with that the other day. So much cooler than the green blade. I'll have to say, just feels like I'm using Batman's racket.
Wilson blacked outs are always good.
Unreal. I love them. So that's all I've got today for your Pure Tennis Podcast fans. CP, JP, anything else for the fans?
I think we'll see you here at Shanghai.
Love to hear it, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be out there soon.